you, boys.
See, I'm upset today. No.
Go on, give us today's title.
We're going to talk about fucking fake meat. Don't get me started.
Fucking fake meat.
And can I just shout out to a good friend of mine who I love dearly. This one's for you, Prawn.
Prawn, I don't know you, but give us 10 minutes and let us try and change your mind on fake meat.
You got a lot of shout outs. You got a lot of mates.
Yeah.
I've got
a lot of mates. I've known the Prawn for many, many years. We have very, very colourful discussions, and the beauty of our relationship is I'm more conservative, he's very progressive, sort of, for want of a better word, but we can debate, but we still love each other as mates. And
How do you get the nickname Prawn?
Last name.
Oh,
Last name Vaughan.
right.
Yeah. And I've since started calling him Disco. Because, for a while, you know that album from Pet Shop Boys, Disco Pornography? I started calling him Disco Pornography. And it just became Disco. But he's a very dear friend, and he has been considering, like many people, consuming fake meat for whatever reasons he has. One of the reasons I found quite interesting that he gave was to reduce inflammation. And we'll I think, have a look.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. We'll have a look at that, but with all due respect to him, a bit of research on these things, you can find out some information depending on where you find your research, where you do your research.
Absolutely.
From.
Don't go to Google, because the first dozen you get, how good is it?
Before you go on, can I just have? I did a Google search, right? The first thing that comes up after a quick Google search of plant-based meat, the first link made available is the Good Food Institute. All right, okay, Good Food Institute.
They sound like good people.
Yep. Their first quote on there is, this is in quotations, like animal-based meat, plant-based meat is composed of protein, fat, vitamins, minerals, and water. Next generation plant-based meat looks, cooks, and tastes like conventional meat. I find that quite hard to believe, but it goes on to state that plant-based meat industry was established in the 1970s to 90s for the vegan sort of demographic. But they also went on, and I'll read this from their website, the importance of plant-based meat on the environment. All right, so they deem that plant-based or fake meat has a significant impact on our environment compared to real meat.
Impact.
Yes,
that's what they're saying.
Yes, because real meat from a cow is so detrimental.
We've definitely talked about that in the past, but let's just say that.
Let's let Roo say his spiel, and then we can cut him down.
Yeah,
it doesn't go long. So this is from their website. Why is plant-based meat important? Like cultivated meat and fermentation-derived products, plant-based meat is better for the planet, people, and animals. Analyses of the environmental impact of plant-based meat show that plant-based meat production uses 72 to 99% less water and 47 to 99% less land. My point here is less than what?
What?
Further, it causes 51 to 91% less water pollution. Okay, compared to what? And emits 30 to 90% less greenhouse gas emissions. So these factories that the plant-based meat are baked in or made in obviously don't release any greenhouse emissions. By transitioning to plant-based meat and other alternative proteins, we can use far fewer natural resources and enable entire ecosystems and the biodiversity those systems support to recover, function and thrive. Plant-based meat production does not require any antibiotics. This helps address the broad overuse of antibiotics in meat production. According to the New York Times, in the United States, between 70 and 80% of antibiotics sold are consumed by farm animals. Okay, there's no reference to the studies here or anything. On our current trajectory, we are rapidly creating antibiotic-resistant superbugs and risk causing the end of working antibiotics. By shifting to alternative proteins like plant-based meat, we can significantly decrease the antibiotic uses in our food production and keep antibiotics working for human health and well-being. Last point, by taking animals out of the equation, plant-based meat also significantly lowers the risk of future pandemics.
You don't want a rogue cow coming up into your workplace and coughing Ebola virus in your face, do you?
That's right.
That'll get you.
Man, So that was just from a Google search, and that's the first link made available.
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, there's different types of plant-based or non-animal meats, right? So when I started looking into it, you've sort of got your very old school, probably in the 70s or whatever, you know, like your soy burgers and things like that, which really bear no resemblance to an actual slab of meat. But it seems like in recent times, we've moved on to this thing where even if you're a vegan, for some reason, you want to eat something that looks, tastes and acts like a bloody slab of meat. So now we find ourselves with these two alternatives. We've got lab-grown meat, where they actually take cells out of an animal and grow those in a lab to essentially grow that sort of meat. So they'll take like beef cells and they'll make them replicate to make what is beef, but it was never a cow. So there's that. And then we've got this other more popular one, which is the plant-based meats, like your Impossible Burger, Beyond Burger.
So they're the ones full of soy, full of seed oils,
pea protein, seed oils. So they seem to be sort of your different choices. So talking about the environment, which you just spoke about, if you talk about lab-based meat, which has a number of other problems, but just from an environmental point of view, it's incredibly energy intensive. So it's grown in a lab, and it uses a hell of a lot of energy, so power, to maintain these labs and grow this beef.
Yep.
So if you look at some of the arguments against it, the global warming potential of cell-based or lab-based meat is 25 times greater than beef, retail beef. So that's quite a lot, 25 times worse.
Yeah.
So, and that's before I get into the health concerns of lab-grown meat, after I'll let you guys...
So that's the environmental impact.
I'm just talking environmental?
Yeah. It's also just considering that factory that it's been produced, that lab that it's produced on, is now consuming a large space of land, which could have been used as regenerative agriculture with hooven animals trouncing on an open field, eating good grass and shitting on the grass, and therefore cycle. Yeah. Anyway.
So just briefly, I'll say one more little segment, and then I'll shut up and let you guys. I'm really fired up about this.
Let me have a go.
Yeah, you want to get in?
No, you go.
No, keep going.
Because
because
you touched on the.
So
from an environmental point of view,
Yeah.
everyone's jazzed up about carbon. We're all terrified of carbon. Yeah. You know, carbon's going to ruin the whole world. So, if you look at the greenhouse gases emitted from raising conventional beef, 3.5 kilos per 4 ounce serving. So everything I'm going to talk about is a 4 ounce serving, right? So 3.5 kilos.
4 ounce is
like 100 grams, roughly 120 grams.
Yeah.
For our Australian friends, so half a burger maybe, or one small burger.
Yeah.
So 3.5 kilos of CO2 for conventional. I assume that would be like CAFO beef, just raised in a normal cattle farm.
To clarify, those references that say that website you've looked at seem to only look at feedlot farms, and guaranteed they're bad, right?
Yep.
Everyone wants to get rid of those.
Yeah.
Compared to regenerative farming that we have talked about before.
Exactly.
Yeah. So sorry, that was you were going to say that.
Yeah. So just briefly, so keep that number in mind: 3.5 kilos of CO2 per 120 grams. Impossible Burger looks great next to that, 0.4 kilos. So nearly 10 times less, right? Tofu, 0.3 kilos, so even better. Beans, even better than that, 0.2 kilos. So they absolutely murder it, but they create CO2 into the atmosphere, so they are polluting. Regeneratively raised beef sequesters 0.7 kilograms of CO2 per 120 grams. So it actually improves the environment in terms of CO2 output by negative 0.7 kilos of CO2. So it actually sequesters more than it makes.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, we're all on board, like the high intensity cattle farming as we do it, just pumping them into small feedlots, feeding them a whole bunch of grain. Antibiotics, you know, all the food's probably GM food.
Yeah.
Probably not that good.
Yeah. So that's not, I mean, that statement is, there's a lot of BS in it, but there's a lot of stuff that could be true.
Yeah, if you're referring to
CAFO farms.
Yeah. So if you want to improve your soil, improve your air quality, and get a premium product, regeneratively raised beef is by far and away the best.
Yeah.
By far and away.
Yeah.
So it's twice, well, more than that, 3 times as good as Impossible Burger, orders of magnitude better than conventional beef, but it's the only method for creating a safe, delicious, endless form of protein, while fixing the environment.
So if you're a person thinking that you're going to go to fake meat for environmental purposes, then you're being fooled.
You're being fooled. Go regeneratively raised beef.
Yeah. So if, alternatively, you go into grass-fed, grass-finished beef from a farm. You're doing the environment a better service than
Much better.
buying fake meat and eating fake meat.
And you're supporting a farmer, not a large multinational corporation who
Yeah.
is making you... Because don't forget, if you're buying these plant-based burgers, it's an ultra-processed food.
Yeah.
Now, I dare you to go online and type in ultra-processed food, is it healthy? Make up your own mind.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to
Yeah.
shut up and you've got some talk for it.
Yeah, and in a world where we are deviating away from, or a lot of people are deviating away from any sort of processed food, so the food that they eat is more natural and unprocessed. This just goes against that whole train of thought.
And you look at the ingredients list, and a lot of people do that. They go to the shop. They're gonna, okay. For example, if you went in and you looked at, I don't know, a flour-based wrap, right? Like a wrap that you put meat, salad in, eat it. Some of them have 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 ingredients. Others are just flour and water and salt.
Yep.
So people go in and go, all right, I'm going to get this one because it's got less products. It's got no seed oils. You look at Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger or any of those fake meats and the list of ingredients is horrendous. There's 10, 15 of them on there. Oh, you got them.
I've got a whole lot
go.
of really...
Go.
I've got a list of them here. But
Yeah, go for your
no, you can go. But I've also, my good friend did send me a photo of the label of the meat that he eats.
Is this disco?
Which
Yeah.
one was it, mate? Which product?
It didn't actually
I
say.
thought you were Mitch, mate.
It just
Disco, prawn.
It just had the label. This is made in Australia from at least 70% Australian ingredients. So here I'll just rattle them off: water, plant proteins 26%, soy proteins, canola oil, natural flavours, soy fibre, yeast extract, mineral, iron in brackets, and vitamin B12. Contains soy and wheat. So my first concerns there straight away is the canola oil, because as we've done that episode on seed oil, very highly inflammatory. So if you are looking at reducing your inflammation, you're avoiding seed oils like canola oil. Also soy, any soy protein or soy product, I read as an endocrine disruptor.
Very estrogenic.
Very estrogenic. So if you're a man looking after your health and your testosterone levels and your well-being, soy actually can increase your estrogen levels. So high estrogen levels in men leads to that, what's that? Bitch tits.
Boobies.
Yeah, you got man boobs.
There is a
Increase.
Gynecomastia.
Gynecomastia and increase in body fat as well. So that they were also my first concerns. You've got some other ingredients, Smithy?
Yeah, I'll touch on the estrogen testosterone thing
Yeah.
just quickly.
And sorry, just on soy, that's also soy proteins are very heavily GMO, like very
Yes.
genetically
Yeah.
modified foods, aren't they? Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
Which part of the reason why, and cool, maybe you don't want to eat meat for the damage to the animal, but it's an unnatural product, soy, that's been GMO'd, genetically modified. Well, is there a complete difference in? You want to eat natural, organic, and then you have your organically raised glyphosate-laden soy that you're going to eat.
Yeah.
It just
Doesn't
makes
make
no
sense.
Mate, it's contradictory, hypocritical almost. Anyway, sorry, Matt.
No. So I looked at a ton of studies about the estrogen testosterone interaction with soy protein. If you go back 10 or so years, the very vast majority of the studies, if not all of them, were essentially saying that it reduces testosterone and can increase estrogen in both men and women. In the last few years, since these burgers came out, the science is twisting a little bit. So I don't know if the methodology is changing or the testing is getting better or whatever, but the best study I found was a long-term study, because a lot of them only investigate it for like 2 or 4 weeks, and the window is quite small and you're not often going to see those hormonal changes kicking in very quickly. But I found a very interesting, very recent study. It looked at people for 18 months, and for 18 months they consumed 19 grams a day of soy protein isolate. They consistently saw a reduction in circulating testosterone and sex hormone binding globulin, this sort of little thing that carries around testosterone in your blood. And they went on to just, I'll cut out all the mumbo jumbo, soy protein supplementation for 18 months affects the androgen axis. So androgen being testosterone and your sex hormones. So it clearly does do that.
Yeah. Interesting study. Yeah.
That's a clear outcome too. It's not. More needs to be done to research this.
I can literally find you several studies that were actually commissioned by the Soy Farmers, Federation, or I'm sort of making shit up, but funded by the soy industry or funded by Impossible Burger themselves or whatever. Again, I don't know if that's actually the case, but funded by people who have a vested interest. And they can do these shorter term studies with different groups, and they can find, no change, or it's exactly the same or whatever. To me, 18 months of following someone who had essentially 20 grams of soy protein isolate a day is fairly conclusive.
Yeah. And did you record who did that study, mate? Or where that study was done?
I can find it for you, mate, if I need to, if you want to put it in the links.
That might be worthwhile getting that link and just chuck that in the notes for anyone that wants to look at that.
Yeah.
We can do that later.
So I looked at 4 different options that you can buy in Australia from like Woolies or Coles or wherever.
Yeah.
First one was beef mince. So I'm talking about actual animal raised on an actual farm.
How many ingredients in that one?
One. One ingredient, beef. So this sounds pretty expensive, right? Because it's 100% WA, grass-fed, grass-finished, regeneratively farmed beef with no additives, no hormones, and no preservatives. So that sounds pretty good, right?
Yep.
One ingredient, beef. 85% lean, so 15% fat. The price for 250 grams is just less than $5. So cheap.
Yeah.
If you look at both Impossible Burger, there's a Bird's Eye product, and Beyond Meat, to get lesser quantity, so 227 grams, 226 grams. The Impossible and the Beyond Burger were both $11, so more than double for a little bit less. And to give you an idea, Beyond Burger is made in the Netherlands, so going back to the beef that's grown locally in WA, so there's no carbon footprint of shipping it all the way from the Netherlands from some factory that makes pretend meat.
Good point.
The Impossible Burger is made in the United States, so again, really long carbon footprint of shipping it across the ocean, long supply chain, all that sort of jazz. More than twice the cost. And you look at the ingredients of the Beyond Meat burger, for example, water. These guys use pea protein. So water, pea protein, and rapeseed oil are the first 3 ingredients. So rapeseed oil is absolutely full of linoleic acid, which is one of the most pro-inflammatory things you can put into your body. So if you're looking to reduce inflammation, rapeseed oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil, soy oil, any of those, terrible choices. And very expensive, and I'm going to argue doesn't taste as good.
Yeah.
Although I've never tasted it.
They chuck in what I found interesting with that label there, the 26% of plant proteins. What plant proteins and how much plant have you put in there to get 26%? Because plant proteins are quite low. For example, they're the lowest percentage of protein amongst all crop foods particularly potato protein, which is quite a significant product in these fake meat burgers, and that plant protein listed on that label there, it could more than likely be potato proteins. There's about 2 grams of protein per 100 gram of potatoes, compared to 25 grams of protein in 100 grams of steak. So you're chucking in a fair bit of potato or whatever plant protein you're using in that product to get 26%. It's interesting though, doing a Google search on potato protein, Google states potatoes have some surprisingly high quality proteins. Surprisingly high, 2 grams per 100.
Ooh, as high as 2.
So not a great deal. I found this product interesting, methyl cellulose. That's used for the texture and to make the product have a meat-like texture. So even the name methyl cellulose doesn't sound too good to me, but that's known for damages to gut biome. So your gut health gets dramatically affected by that. Synthetically made product, and it's highly processed and inflammatory. So another inflammatory product put in that meat, fake meat.
Yeah, it's wild. Mate, going back to the protein, so I went into this a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So if you look at just your normal beef mince, ingredients is beef. If you have 100 grams of that, I'm going to speak about everything in 100 gram increments, that'll get you 19 grams of high quality beef protein, which is very bioavailable, very high in leucine, gives you a really good spread of all your amino acids that you need to actually grow your body.
Yeah.
Right, so 19 grams.
And some good healthy saturated fats.
Good healthy saturated fats. So 100 grams, 19 grams of protein, and you'll get 5.8 grams of saturated fat, right? Everyone freaks out about saturated fat. We don't,
No.
but if you Google it, people freak out about saturated fat,
Yeah,
right?
but
So
there
remember
are-
those numbers?
Yeah, and we'll do a podcast on this, I reckon, saturated fats. It's an interesting topic. And
Yeah.
there's some other great podcasts out there. If anyone just Googles saturated fats or searches for it in
Yeah.
their Spotify, you'll find some good
Oh,
good podcasts
heaps.
explaining it.
Saladino does.
Yep.
Several.
So if you go through the Beyond Meat burger, again, 100 gram patty, so it's got less protein, 15.9 as opposed to 19. Saturated fat, 4.4, so similar, for less protein and again, double the cost and all the added other things. But its total fat is 15.9 grams per 100, right? So, because it's got all this rapeseed oil in it, the rest of that is going to be polyunsaturated, essentially seed oils, incredibly bad for you.
Yeah.
Then if you go up to the Impossible Burger, 100 grams, 16.7, so again lower than the beef. It's got 11 grams of fat, but 5.2 grams of saturated fat, so nearly the same as normal beef. So if you want to look at it from a fat angle, saturated fat in all three is similar, but you're going to get less protein out of the plant-based ones, and the protein is much less bioavailable. I've got a whole big spit on that later if we get to it, but
And you've also got the bad seed oils in there, the triglyceride.
exactly. And the other thing about beef is it's actually got 6.5 grams of monounsaturated fat, which is quite good for you. Monounsaturated fat is the stuff that we find in olive oil. It's good for HDL, quite sought after.
Yeah.
The others don't seem to have that in it.
Yeah,
So
right.
I'd take the fat breakdown. If you're just looking at it from a fat point of view, I'd take beef every time. If you're just looking at it from a protein point of view, I would take beef every time. If you look at it from a cleanness point of view, for this one we're talking about, no additives, no hormones, no preservatives, grass-fed, grass-finished, regeneratively farmed, I'd take that every time. Cost, it wins on that. Flavour wins on that.
Yeah.
So that's my take on those.
Fake meat.
Fake meat.
Interestingly, I looked at a few other things. So I looked at just the hype around it and the complete lack of substance that it has in. You look at sort of the startup that got it going. So there was something ridiculous like 500 million. It was about 1.4 billion to get it going. Let me get the proper numbers here. So it started in 2012, based on this market for 500 million, the largest investment sum ever for a food tech startup, then another 200 million, up to total funding of 1.5 billion for Impossible Foods.
Wow.
They've also, if you look at their stock price, Impossible is not listed on the stock exchange, but Beyond Meat is. At one point, it was $157 US per share. It's now $7.50. So if you invested that to 1.5 billion, you have made a nearly 150% loss.
Wow. Is that because people are realising that it's no good?
I think so. But interestingly, the hype around it, and this article here talks about it, is the number of followers on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram have gone through the roof. Started at 10,000 and now they're like in the millions.
It's interesting.
So they're pumping these companies up with a lot of money, making heaps of. Are those
bots? They could be bots on those.
Absolutely. So they're
accounts.
pumping up. Look at how our followers are increasing when our stock is plummeting.
Yeah.
And the people that have invested money in it are losing money hand over fist year after year, but the company's still going.
Yeah.
So they're making losses. I'm looking at the conspiratorial side of
I
it.
guess they're being funded by the likes of our friendly philanthropists,
Yep.
Bill Gates and people like that.
Yep.
We love you, Bill.
Yeah.
Yep.
People with a monetary gain behind it.
Yeah. And so they're still losing money. Stocks are plummeting. It's still being made. There is a real, there's still talk about, even with all that, we talked about Google in our last episode, if the first thing you Google in this one is how good it is, that is still what happens, is you Google it. Even if you Google losses on Impossible Burger or Beyond Meat, it's still a positive spin.
Yeah.
Halfway through this article here, they talk about the big meat, and they've got lobbyists that were lobbyists for the tobacco and pharma industry. So Big Meat have employed this guy to spin how good Big Meat is. And what? the world's upside down. Yeah, and it references really outdated. In 2015 and 16, Impossible Burger went up, the meat-based industry grew 8%. That's 8 years ago now. You're looking at it, people have cottoned on that it's no good and it's plummeting. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was really, really interesting. I read somewhere that someone said if you'd shorted when Beyond Meat came on the market, as opposed to now, knew that it was a shit product, it's not even that long. 2000 it was first listed. So if you waited the 4 years, it really plummeted.
Yeah.
So really plummeted about...
Sorry, so the year 2000?
Sorry,
2020.
2020.
2020.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it at its
Went
height, mate? What was the highest price it went to, roughly?
October 2020 went up to $162.
What's it at now?
$7.50.
So if you put in $160, that's now worth $7.
Yes.
Pretty good loss.
Yeah,
That's
massive.
What would that be? 90? I don't know. It's right up there.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Worked it out, but yeah.
If you put in 160 million into it, you'd now have 7 million.
Yeah. So if you put 500 million at the start, or 1.5 billion, you would now have only 700.
So you try to connect.
Anyway.
Sometimes I try to sit here and connect the dots. You look at all these farmer protests in Europe, where farmers are being stripped of their land. They're being accused of inputting too much nitrogen or CO2 into the atmosphere, and so with the argument of climate change, bureaucrats are penalising farmers or trying to reduce their farming activities in the name of climate change. So on one end, you've got all these farmers who provide natural food, natural meat to us as the consumer. You've got them being shunned by bureaucrats, but then you've also got this massive investment in fake shit that is no good for us. It's sort of like that whole train of thought where those in power want us to be unhealthy, because an unhealthy population is dependent on the medical system, dependent on government, is a needy population. You know, so you look at this, and there are people with invested interests in pushing this fake meat. Think you've also got your vegan population, that those people that follow that diet, they'll push it in the name of animal cruelty, sort of thing. It just stinks to me. It just doesn't. There's a hidden agenda behind it.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
I looked at that a little bit as well, because I thought around the same line as you, and I thought, I hear Bill Gates is now the biggest owner of farmland in the United States. A lot of the ultra rich seem to be buying up a lot of farms, so taking off small farmers. And I thought to myself, like, why would they be doing this? So I went into a little bit into the costs. So that if I understand the costs, I can understand maybe what their motivation is towards profit. So if you look at a grass-fed cow, the cost to raise it, and I can only get the cost in US dollars, is about $2,000 to raise a grass-fed cow, and it takes 2 years, right? So 2,000 like 2 years. So if you do all the sums, apparently the cost to produce a pound of grass-fed beef is about $7.60 US. So $7.60 US for a pound. To make the equivalent amount of soybean meal costs about 25 cents.
Wow.
So 25 cents versus $7.60.
Yeah.
Now that's in US dollars. So it's essentially 30 times cheaper to make the soybean meal, which is the main component, as opposed to the beef, and you don't have the 2-year wait time.
Yeah.
So
you're talking instant profit.
Instant profit. They can turn that soil over again and again and again. They're just going to have a massive monocrop full of herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. As far as the eye can see, all there'll be is soy or pea or whatever it is, and they'll just keep turning that over and over and over again and again. And I think their motivation is absolutely profit.
So do you think
So not our health.
No.
Do you
Well, I
think
mean, Bill Gates is a pretty healthy looking guy, so everyone's.
Yeah.
You guys seen the Bill Gates diet? A lot of guys trying to get on board to get his physique.
Yeah.
They want the big gut and
Yeah.
the real unhealthy
Isn't it
looking
amazing?
pasty
I know,
complexion.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing that a man looking like that is pushing health?
We need to eat less real beef for their planet.
Yeah.
I mean, my wallet.
You know, I've just come up with this little equation. Like, so with real meat, obviously has nothing added to it. You've got a healthy animal living or eating grass from quality soil, quality grass, hormone free. That equates to a healthy animal that returns healthy microbes, nutrients back to the soil, which is good for the environment. That equates to a healthy meat being provided to a consumer, which is nutrient dense. Fake meat, it's industry, it's manufacturing, it's pollution. There's no return to soil, or there's no return or benefit to the environment. It's clear cut to me. It's black and white. I just can't understand how people are getting sucked into this.
No.
And the other thing is,
But are they?
Well,
the other
obviously,
thing,
yeah,
right?
obviously,
Because you
maybe
look at
they're
their
not, mate.
stock,
Maybe they're not.
It's plummeting. People aren't buying it. They're making losses, but they keep pumping it up,
Yeah.
like you say. Well, this is the way to go.
Yeah.
And they're using that climate change environmental factor
Yes.
to go. No, this is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Even that the one you read out from the website where it talked about water. Beef uses more water. Beef's not. They're not getting water. They're not making big pools of water. It's falling from the sky, or they're getting it from grass.
Yeah.
It's some of the arguments are just wrong.
Yeah.
And then they perpetuate this myth, and they keep flowing it on for profit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it is working for
But
them.
then you go into these supermarkets here, your big chain supermarkets, and there's whole refrigerators stocked with plant-based shit, plant-based meat.
yeah, there is a lot now.
Yeah.
They must be making losses. And
They must be throwing a lot
They
out,
must
unless
just throw it out.
people are buying them. But then your share price there would say otherwise.
Or maybe they last forever. Maybe.
Well, it's already coming on an airplane or a ship from the US or the Netherlands or wherever, so it's clearly not a highly perishable item. So maybe it's just sitting in stock for.
Yeah.
But there was in that list you had there before, there was leaded preservatives.
Oh yeah, so just have a look at the Beyond Meat Burger ingredients, for example. So we've got water, pea protein, rapeseed oil, coconut oil, rice protein, flavouring, stabiliser (brackets methyl cellulose), potato starch, apple extract, colour, red beet, maltodextrin, pomegranate extract, salt, gelling agent, potassium chloride, concentrated lemon juice, maize vinegar, carrot powder, emulsifier, sunflower lecithin. So a few more ingredients than beef, which is beef.
Yeah. But there's a couple of preservatives in there, so maybe
Yeah.
it lasts months.
Maybe it does, yeah.
You know, beef's going to go bad.
And you know, yeah. And you look at that label that you've just read out there, Smithy, and how many people, I mean, I'd say there are probably more nowadays turning the package over and reading the ingredients list.
Yep.
But there's still a great percentage of people that aren't.
You're probably right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they aren't seeing that list.
No.
If you read that, I mean, if there's anything on an ingredients list that you can't pronounce, it's probably not good for you.
Yeah.
There was one that I saw. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'll just finish with this one.
Okay.
Like, you know how it says soy proteins and a lot of soy products in them. There was this one called soy leg hemoglobin, and it's actually a bioengineered soy.
Hemoglobin.
Yeah, leg hemoglobin.
Yeah, so it stands for legume hemoglobin.
Right.
So in
The blood of
in
legumes.
animals or in any mammal that has blood,
Yep.
us included, then in your red blood cell you've got hemoglobin.
Yep.
Hemoglobin carries iron.
Yep.
So what they wanted to do in this Impossible Burger is they wanted to make a patty that when you cook it, it bleeds like a meat patty would. So it gives you the sort
Get
of
out.
look of having a pink, slightly bloody
Right.
burger in the middle. But now obviously they can't use hemoglobin, because it comes from an animal. So they bioengineered this genetically modified molecule out of legume hemoglobin, leg hemoglobin, which is some GM Frankenstein thing, to give the appearance of a burger that looks like it's bleeding, like a bloody
Wow.
pink burger.
That is
That is
crazy.
It's wild.
And because this product, soy leg hemoglobin, bioengineered soy protein, and it gives a taste and what you're saying there, and the look and the texture of meat, it's actually not classified as a food.
No.
It's actually not classified as a safe edible item, and it has no long-term clinical studies attached to it.
Blow it off.
Yeah, that's right. As long as it makes the meat look pink,
Yeah.
bit of blood coming out of it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That's, that's unbelievable. I did not know that. That's
Yeah, it's crazy. It is.
So when you've got your fake meat patty on the barbie and you're standing around having a couple of beers, oh, look at that, mate. Just seeing bleeding. Must be real.
It's good.
Yeah, look at that soy leg hemoglobin coming out of there. That must be full of nutrients.
Sounds natural.
Yeah. Fuck
Yes.
now.
Because there's also
Wake
been
up.
lawsuits in Europe and the US about whether they can call them steak or meat or
Oh.
whatnot. So in Europe, they said, yeah, you can call it steak, you can call it a burger, you can call it meat patty.
Really?
Yeah, but
Wow.
where in the US they said no, you can't do that. They also did it in Europe with milk and yogurt products.
Wow.
Isn't that funny? You can call it something that it's
Yeah.
not.
So you could even, as a unknowing customer, just waltz into the supermarket,
That's what they were saying.
not on the ball, and steak, mince, whatever. I'll grab some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of getting a delicious
Patty.
beef mince or whatever, you're getting some leg hemoglobin products.
And probably quite conveniently located next to the real mince, so it looks
Getting
like it.
some Frankenstein.
Double the price.
Yeah. I just think in a world where a lot of people are going back to natural foods,
Yeah.
avoiding anything that's artificial or processed,
Yeah.
this is going against that
Yeah.
Yeah.
totally.
But trying to pull the wool over your eyes that it is good
Yeah.
for you. It's good for the environment. It's healthy. It's
Yeah.
Well, I think people have been missold the idea that beef has to be bad for the environment.
yeah.
And obviously we're just focusing on beef. We haven't spoken about chicken and pork and fish and all the other things. But, in the context of what we're trying to talk about here, we've chosen beef because it's probably the most consumed sort of meat. But, hopefully, very briefly, we've demonstrated that beef doesn't have to be bad for the environment if you go for a regeneratively farmed product. So that takes that off the thing. So if you're looking at it from an environmental point of view, beef doesn't have to be worse and it can be better. If you're looking at it from a health point of view, then we can pretty confidently say that this stuff looks horrible. It's ultra processed food. It's going to be inflammatory, bad for you with a lesser quality protein. Ethical point of view, if you're just doing it for ethics, I've got no argument with you. Go for your life. I don't understand why you want to eat something that looks and tastes like a bloody pile of meat, but I get it. If you ethically don't want to eat animals, good for you. You're a better person than me. I love meat, but I understand it. If you're doing it from an ethical point of view, you know, that's great.
Fill your boots.
If you're doing it from a cost point of view, it doesn't seem to be any better.
No.
Actually appears to the time being to be worse.
Which is funny because you were just saying it would cost less to make.
Oh, heaps less, but yet they're charging quite a bit. So I feel like maybe if you're a globalist, you're looking at it at the moment, and there's all these guys who can have small farms and make a living selling cattle, right? There's not going to be any small farmers who can afford to make a giant factory laboratory that's going to pump out these fake meat patties. You're not going to be a family farm that's going to go, let's create something called, you know, a version of soy hemoglobin, whatever.
Yeah.
Get all these crazy ingredients and make an you know, not
Yeah.
many people have $1.5 billion to make a startup.
Because you need to
these
make a
fake
lab.
meat
You have
companies.
to have a lab.
Got to have a lab,
Yeah.
and you've got to have all this crazy testing and all this stuff. So it seems to me like the globalists have gone, wow, this is 30 times cheaper to make. The profits can be absolutely phenomenal, and we can have essentially control of the market because we'll ostracise beef so much, we'll make everyone feel bad because of the environmental concerns and the, you know, ethical concerns and all this sort of stuff, and we're going to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
And be damned with human health.
Yeah.
But are they making a ton of money?
Well, I mean,
Are they playing a very long game?
I think they're playing the long game because you
Yeah.
look at some schools in America now, they're going meatless Monday, so they're bringing in plant-based meat on Mondays in schools.
Yeah.
You got Bill Gates on the TV saying people should very rarely, if ever, eat beef, and we should be looking at eating, you know, plant-based
Alternatives.
versions of beef.
Are people seeing through that guy now?
You got the World Economic Forum and those sorts of good people saying that we can't feed the globe using beef, so we've got to find alternative sources. So maybe they're looking and going, yeah, we'll make a loss for now, but we'll slowly encroach like we do with everything.
Yeah.
We'll keep stepping in. People get more and more used to it, and then eventually we'll all just eat beef, and then one day they'll say, look, cows are just too bad, we can't have them.
Yeah. Or they'll just make it so hard for farmers to sustain a farm.
It'll be so cost prohibitive
Yeah.
that the farms will become so tight that the price of beef will go up.
Yeah.
The price of this shit, as they get more factories and more supply networks, will come down.
Yeah.
And you'll be looking at the shops going, man, I can't afford real beef.
Yeah. Yeah. Hence the importance of going to your local farmer, your local beef provider, as all of us have done.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
So we got a ton of good ones in WA. We've got,
Yeah.
we've got Dirty Clean Food. We've got Gin beef.
Yep.
We've got Darrigan beef.
Yeah.
We've got that Coral Coast beef. I don't know if you guys are across them. They do
No.
some really good work. I've been using them a bit lately.
Yeah.
Heaps of good options.
Yeah.
And heaps cheaper than any of these shit
Yeah.
products that we're talking about.
And they deliver to your door.
Yeah.
Liberty Door.
Yeah.
And the good thing about using them more often and getting more people in there is that it makes it cheaper and easier for everyone to get hold of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been using Gin beef now. They're awesome. Their communication to me let me know that the delivery's coming. They'll if I've forgotten to leave my esky out, and if I'm not home, I'll leave an esky out with ice. I'll put it in there. But if I've forgotten my esky, they'll go back to the car and bring out a refrigerated bag, leave it there by the door.
Yeah.
You know, it's
That's
just the
pretty good.
service
service is fantastic,
Yeah.
and they'll ask for feedback, and they're generally always improving
That's awesome.
their service. I'm so impressed with them.
Yeah, and I hope more people use them because
Yeah.
then if they don't have the need or desire from people, then people like us will miss out because they'll just go, okay, it's too hard. We're not
Yeah.
going to do it anymore. So the more people that do it, the better it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we said before, the most powerful thing you can do is vote with your dollar.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really gets the attention of any
Yeah.
corporation.
Yeah.
Is if they start losing money, they'll make changes.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And hopefully these other companies get bigger and sort of expand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got more if you guys want to go into the bad side of this.
Go for it,
Are
man.
we wrapping up, or are we?
No.
You guys?
Go,
are
yeah.
Far
go.
away. You've done the
Yeah.
research, mate.
Absolutely. That's
You were
Okay,
very
so-
passionate about this
I'm
one.
very passionate about this. So cell-based or cultured meat, the one that they grow in a lab that comes from animal cells.
Yep.
So there's a bit of a problem with that. So normal cells only replicate a certain amount of times. So like in your body, you don't want cells to get uncontrolled replication. That's called cancer.
Yeah.
So if your cells lose that sort of switching off apoptosis thing and they don't take care of themselves, then you get, runaway growth. cancer.
Yeah.
So in the lab, they start with a few of these animal cells and they bathe them in certain solutions and they do this stuff to grow this lab-based meat. But they can't use normal cells because they get to their level of replication and then they stop. So they've got to use these things called immortalized cells, which are essentially precancerous or cancerous animal cells to grow these slabs of meat big enough to actually make the product.
No.
Big problem.
So hang on. They're putting cancerous cells.
Well, they call them immortalized cells.
Immortalized.
People in the know refer to them as either precancerous or cancerous cells because they've got uncontrolled replication, which is what cancer does.
So they can
So they're chucking that in a
Quicker.
petri dish, and because they multiply more than a normal cell, that's how they can
Yeah,
grow
otherwise
the
they
meat.
can get the quantity because
Yeah.
they're starting with a group of, small group of cells and they want to make a, ribeye or whatever they're making, I don't know. It's got to get big.
Yeah.
So they're using these immortalized cells. Even the people that market this are like, this is a problem, people don't really like this.
Yeah, right.
So what the long-term safety of that is, I don't
Just
know.
the
but
thought of that, just the thought of eating a product
it's Frankenstein shit, right?
that's made
Yeah.
from cancer cells.
Yeah. And that's on top of the, 25 or 30 times worse impact on the environment because of the amount of energy that these labs need to use to
Yeah.
make it.
You can imagine how much meat they need to make in a lab to feed everyone.
Exactly. It seems a lot easier.
But if they can
Have a
produce,
ranch
Cows
with-
give
but
a
if
cow some grass.
Yeah.
but if,
They don't
but if
run
they
a
can
lot of
produce,
power.
if they can use all that sort of immortalized cell that they refer to, that cancer thing, they can produce a lot, can't they?
Well,
Because
exactly,
it's,
yeah.
it's constantly reproducing.
They can produce
itself.
as much as they want, but they're limited by obviously the size of their lab and
Yeah, right.
that sort of thing. I guess I don't know how long or short it takes to grow it, but I don't know. I wouldn't be going near that.
No.
I think that's still coming. I don't know if that's on the shelves in Australia yet. I think it is in certain parts of the world. I don't think we quite have it, but I think we will.
Yeah.
If we go back to the plant-based burgers, so your Impossible Burger, Beyond Burger, whatever. So the protein in these is not as good as normal protein. So beef protein you get from eggs, protein you get from whey, milk, whatever, is very bioavailable to your body. So it's got a really good array of essential and non-essential amino acids, and your body knows what to do with it. So your body, if you have a slab of beef or you have a serving of whey protein or you have an egg, it'll stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So you'll build muscle, you will do biologically active things. If you have soy protein, pea protein, whatever, it's much less able to stimulate that. So in studies where they've given people, I looked at one study and they gave people either a placebo, so 0, 20 grams or 40 grams of protein, and the options were the placebo, whey protein or soy protein in those amounts.
So protein, whey protein in 20.
So 20 grams of whey protein, 20 grams of soy protein, or 20
Oh, okay,
grams
yeah,
of placebo, and then also 0, 0, 0, and 40, 40, 40.
Yep.
So obviously 0 stimulated 0 muscle protein synthesis. You would expect that, right? In both resting and exercised individuals. 20 grams of whey protein would stimulate muscle protein synthesis. 20 grams of soy protein would not. So it didn't do anything.
You're right.
So there's all these jokes online. You see things about 20 grams of soy protein is like a glass of water. Anabolism, like growth.
Yeah.
40 grams would actually stimulate it, but not nearly as well as whey protein.
40 of whey, yeah.
I couldn't find any that compared beef to soy, but whey's a known we all know whey protein works.
Yeah.
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 And we all know beef is incredibly anabolic. It will help you grow.
Yeah.
So the quality of the protein is just not as good. Doesn't have the right composition of essential and non-essential amino acids. Doesn't have as much leucine in it, which is the growth sort of promoter.
Yeah.
On top of that, soy and other plant-based ones have a whole bunch of anti-nutritional factors in them. There's things like oxalates and lectins and all this stuff that you guys would have heard of.
Yeah.
So they are sort of, they inhibit the absorption of certain nutrients and minerals, and they can be inflammatory as well. So
'Cause they're like plant defense mechanisms, aren't they? Those
yeah, exactly.
lectins?
Yeah. So plants can't run away, so they've got
Yeah.
all these things like lectins and oxalates and stuff that
Yeah.
essentially make predators not want to eat them.
Yeah.
So if you're in the shops and you're looking at it, and we spoke about it before, and beef had the highest amount of grams per 100 of protein, but the others were reasonably close, you might be looking at it and going, oh, well, yeah, beef's got 19, but, Impossible's got whatever it was, 16,
15 or
and Beyond's
14,
15
yeah.
or whatever. It's pretty close. Don't forget that once you eat that amount of protein, it's not going to have the same biological effect in your body.
Gotcha.
So just
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
then
not,
lastly-
it's not going to be absorbed and utilised by your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like if your daily requirement, you decide you want to have 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight. That's what you decide you want to do.
Yeah.
Well, if that works for you, having meat, eggs, milk,
Yeah.
whey, whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to need to have a higher amount of plant-based stuff to get the same biological effect.
Yeah.
So you might go up from 100 to you might say, oh, now I need 130 to get the same sort of effect.
Yeah.
So just think about that. If you're trying to grow or even just maintain what you've got, apples ain't apples when you're comparing. Protein isn't protein.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And even your the ones that you mentioned, that those good proteins like from meat and eggs and milk and whey and so on, even some of those can't be absorbed by some people.
Oh
But, and also depending on other foods and nutrients that you're eating, can prevent their 100% absorption or usage. So that's along the same lines there. And so those plant-based meats are along those lines of not being absorbed or utilised by your body as effectively.
Yeah, totally.
It's a waste of food, basically. It's a waste of calories and consumption.
It's a waste of calories. You're getting all the seed oils that we spoke about on top of it.
Yeah.
You're getting the anti-nutritional factors, which are going to inhibit your absorption of other things, nutrients and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just, and then on top of that, it's going to be loaded with glyphosate. It's probably going to be GM modified. Just
Yeah.
if you do it for ethical reasons, I get it. Like, good on you, but just be aware that you're probably going to have to make some compromises if you want to have the same level of health.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard for you.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's lots of devil in all this detail, and we could go on and talk about it for bloody days. But I don't know. You can't improve on Mother Nature, right? Like,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
it's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're becoming a species that are just consuming unnatural things. Like for millions of years, we've eaten natural plants and natural animal products.
Yeah.
Or we've eaten meat.
Yeah.
That's what made us smart animals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The proteins in it.
yeah, and it's particularly bad for elderly because elderly are already at risk of not meeting their protein requirements, and they've got issues with not getting enough leucine and muscle protein synthesis and stuff. So if you're elderly, it's especially bad.
Yeah.
But it's bad enough if you're young.
Yeah.
So I say don't feed the globalists, feed the local farmers, and buy some beef.
Yeah. Have you ever had one? Have you ever had a fake meat?
No.
I don't think I could bring myself to do it.
I actually would have before I researched this.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, I want to try it for a
Try it.
taste, but now
Yeah.
I won't
Yeah.
touch it.
No. No, I just wouldn't take. I'd like to have it just to see what the taste,
Yeah.
see what it tastes like,
Yeah.
and just watch that little bit of soy leg hemoglobin leak out of it as I cook it. But just knowing what's in it it's not good for me, and I'm just not interested in
No.
consuming that shit.
Yeah.
It's body's a temple,
That's right.
Mm.
You're going to get one of them, don't you? So, I mean,
Yeah.
if it's something you're going to do every week or every day, tread carefully.
Yeah.
I want to fill it with soy.
Mm.
Ideally.
Well,
Well, we could even send this little podcast off to our good friend at work, our Richie.
Oh, he might not like it.
I don't think you're going to change his mind.
No.
But hopefully we have changed a few minds today.
Yeah, well, to my dear friend
Right.
Disco.
Yeah.
I hope it helps.
Disco, look into it, mate. Like,
Yeah.
fact check everything we say, but there's tons of stuff out there, and
Yeah.
Well, even some of that stuff, you're talking about that soy hemoglobin, whatever it is, and the cancer cells, and I wouldn't touch it before that, but that just completely solidified my position. Like, why the...
Mm.
I'm
Why
convinced
would
it's a
you
money. It's a money thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're trying to control our food chain,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
trying to make a fuckload of money
Yeah.
out of us at the same time.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
Guilt people into going, oh, the ethics and the environment.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the ethics, I get it, but you don't have to eat fake meat. You can just eat vegetables and fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carbohydrates.
Yeah.
You don't have to eat something that looks like an animal.
Mm.
If you don't want to eat animals, don't eat animals.
Yeah.
Well, that's half the other issue that I've got. Well, why, if meat's so bad, why make it look like meat?
Yeah, make it look like a carrot.
Make it look like what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a
You don't see
contradiction.
carnivores going, oh, fuck, I'm only going to eat beef, but could you make beef look like a bit of celery for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd make me feel a lot
It's a
better.
contradiction for vegans and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they've chosen veganism because they're against animals.
whatever reason,
Or,
yeah.
or, maybe for whatever reason, but a lot of them say, I just don't like the texture of meat in my mouth.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But then they're going to go and eat a plant-based meat which is made to look and feel and smell and bleed like meat.
A sausage. Yeah.
You know, what? It doesn't make sense.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't introduce ourselves this week.
You know who we
A
are.
bit too late for that. We introduced all our friends, but
We did. We never really mentioned our how to get in contact with us. If
No.
you don't like our take on fake meat,
yeah,
they can
hit
give us
us,
an email.
CJ.
Hit me up, man. Hit us up. Send us some studies. Prove us
Yeah.
wrong. I'd
Yeah.
love that. That'd be awesome.
Ancestral.
We'll do a follow up. If you're out there and you're a crazy vegan and you hate us, send us some studies and we'll rebut you.
Yeah,
We'll have you on to a debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love a good debate and I'd
Yeah.
love to be proven wrong and, you know,
yeah,
Yeah.
look into it a bit more and see where we land. But I'm pretty confident in this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Gmail, what is it?
Modernancestralman@gmail.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
All
Who's
right.
gonna hate?
I'm Chris. This is Matt.
Yeah, I'm Rooster, and this is
Signing out.
Guitar Time.
Let's go get a fake burger, boys.
I'm hungry.